This is Modern Mindset, the show that picks the brains of the world's leading minds to help you unlock yours. I'm your host, Adam Cox, and joining me today, we have Rob Lyon, who is the campaign manager for CO Alarms Save Lives. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So, from the 1st of October, landlords in England will legally need to provide a carbon monoxide alarm for their tenants. How significant a change is this, and why was it necessary?
Yeah, we believe it's a huge change. It's something we've been campaigning for many years, because carbon monoxide is known as the silent killer because you can't see, smell, or taste it. And almost all properties have some sort of fuel burning appliance, such as a boiler, a wood burning stove, gas hob, something of that nature that could emit carbon monoxide if there was a problem. So with it being a silent killer, the only way of knowing if you're being poisoned would be either you display symptoms that can be misunderstood, sometimes as they're kind of flu-like symptoms at lower levels. Obviously, as it escalates, they can obviously cause collapse and even death. But carbon monoxide is quite unknown, and because it's only an alarm that will keep you safe, putting the obligation on a landlord to install the alarm and maintain that alarm for its life is just a great way of keeping thousands, millions of more people safe in the UK.
I think a lot of people are very familiar with smoke alarms, and they're quite common practice in a lot of rental properties. In terms of carbon monoxide alarms, how different do they work, and kind of how much do they cost for a landlord? Is this a big financial commitment for landlords up and down the country?
No, it's not a big commitment in terms of cost at all. Alarms start from anywhere from around sort of the £15 mark, and the principles are very similar to a smoke or fire alarm, in that they detect carbon monoxide, they emit a loud beep, and at that point you ventilate the property and get out of the property as quickly as possible. The difference, obviously, being with, say, a fire, is it has visual stimulants as well. You may smell the smoke, you may hear the flames. With carbon monoxide, there is literally nothing to alert you that you're being poisoned apart from this alarm.
Yeah, and you say it's like the silent killer because it doesn't have a smell, doesn't have a taste. There isn't anything noticeable. What might be the clues if an alarm wasn't installed, and someone thought, okay, actually this might be a heads up that might be carbon monoxide in the property? Are there any clues that you could would it affect the breathing, for example, or anything to look out for?
Yeah, so the symptoms of carbon monoxide, as I said, are kind of can be confused with flu-like symptoms. So headaches, a little bit of nausea, shortness of breath, as you said. One of the clues could be that if you feel unwell within your property, but then you feel better when you're outside. Equally, if more members of your household, so people that you live with, are suffering the same sorts of symptoms, could also be a sign. So yeah, they're the sort of the key ones. Certainly, if you feel better when you're outside of your property, but very much ill within it, that could definitely be a sign of carbon monoxide poisoning.
And how often do these devices need to be checked? Is it that you install it and you can just kind of forget about it, or they need to be checked fairly regularly?
Yeah, again, in the same sort of principles as smoke alarms, they have a life of around 7 to 10 years, but we still recommend people test them every month, just as much as anything to familiarize yourself with where the alarm is, just to check it's still working. There's not some sort of fault that could have come into play. But in theory, you could fit and forget, but we do very much recommend you just test that alarm every month, press the button, it will test the circuitry, it will make sure it will make the sound, so it's definitely working, and you're remaining safe.
Absolutely. And what's the cause of these carbon monoxide leaks? Is it some kind of faulty boiler or fireplace? Is there something that can lead to it, really?
Yeah, so carbon monoxide is basically when there's incomplete combustion. So for example, if you look at a flame on your boiler, it's a very blue flame. It's being burnt very efficiently. If that's not such the case, that flame will be sort of more of a yellowy color. So it's when all the fuel isn't being burnt properly. There's a byproduct of carbon monoxide. So if that's the case, that will leak back into your property. Equally, if you had a blocked chimney or flue, when there's a fire, obviously all that carbon monoxide fumes go straight up your chimney. If you're unfortunate enough that there's a block in that chimney, or there's a crack in it and it's leaking to an upstairs bedroom, the carbon monoxide can leak out accordingly. And equally, there has been tragic cases where it's actually leaked. It penetrated brickwork and got into a neighbouring property. So it's critically important that people have alarms to remain safe.
Yeah, that's it. Because you can't smell it or taste it. Like, the alarm is kind of your eyes and your kind of nose for this kind of stuff, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Whose responsibility is it? Should a tenant inform the landlord if they don't think there is a carbon monoxide alarm, or should they just assume that the landlord has it on their to-do list and will get it done by the first?
Yeah, I think definitely don't assume. There are lots and lots of responsible landlords out there, but equally there may be some that don't necessarily follow all the regulations with as much attention as they should. So with our campaign, we're obviously targeting landlords to make sure they're aware of the change, but equally for all tenants to pester their landlords, make them aware of the regulation change so that they can be protected.
And what happens if a landlord just doesn't do it? Because you're right, there are very responsible landlords, but equally there's lots of landlords that are kind of less competent and less professional about it. What will happen to them if they just don't comply?
Yeah, so there's a £5,000 fine which can be for each property, which is quite key. So if there's a landlord that has multiple properties, it could really rack up as a very high fine for them. But obviously their mindset should be about keeping their tenants safe first and foremost. But there is, that monetary fine should be an incentive also to make sure you meet the regulations.
Mm. You're in the industry. Obviously you welcome this change, it sounds. Are there any other changes that you would like to see when it comes to either landlords or in fact carbon monoxide?
Well, it's fantastic that the English regulations have been improved, but they haven't gone far enough, in my opinion. For example, in Scotland, the regulations are for all homes, whether they're rented or not, and that regulations are already in place actually from the 1st of February this year. So there's still a huge amount of work we can do. I mean, only about 54% of homes in England, 54% don't have an alarm. So you can see there's a huge potential of people that are still at risk. So Scotland has gone one step further, and I'd like to see England and Wales follow.
And tell us about your organisation. What's your mission, and what would you like to see different in the world?
Yeah, so Carbon Monoxide Save Lives is a collaborative platform working with many people across industries, from the gas distribution networks who kindly sponsor our campaign to make sure we can keep people safe, from fire and rescue services. There's all sorts of people involved, and we all have the same goal of just making sure people are aware of the dangers of carbon monoxide. They're aware of the symptoms and how it could affect them. And the overarching goal, time and time again, is making sure people have that carbon monoxide alarm to keep themselves safe.
Fantastic. And give us some details as to where people can go for more information.
Yeah, so we've created a campaign website. It's www.co-alarms-save-lives. And on there, we've got all details on the regulations themselves. There's information for tenants and for landlords, symptoms, all the various things. It's really a one-stop shop for everything you need to know about carbon monoxide poisoning.
Yeah, well, I think even if we've just raised awareness to a few hundred people there that install the carbon monoxide and they wouldn't, we're saving lives there. So really appreciate your time today, Rob. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And to you at home, thanks for joining me on Modern Mindset in association with Share Radio. See you again soon for more.